The phone rang at exactly 8:30 in the morning. I knew who it was before I even looked at the screen. Beatrice always rang at that time, not too early so as not to wake me up, as she thought, and not too late so as not to catch me in the garden. Funny how my daughter didn't know I've been up at 5 every morning for the last 50 years. "Huxley Ravenscroft here," I said, deliberately using a formal tone. It annoyed Beatrice, which gave me a little pleasure. "Dad, how many times do I have to tell you? It's caller ID. I know you can see who's calling." Beatrice's voice sounded the same as always, a mixture of irritation and condescension. "How are you today?" I hummed. "Woke up on this side of the earth, so it wasn't a bad day." "Daddy," she sighed with that peculiar intonation she'd been using for the last few years, like she was talking to a cranky child. "We're having a barbecue on Saturday. Owen got a promotion and we're celebrating with his co-workers and superiors. You should come." "Not an invitation in order," I grumbled, looking out the window at my immaculate garden. The last thing I wanted was to spend the day in the midst of a noisy group of people who didn't care about me, listening to stories about my son-in-law's successes and pretending my presence meant something to my daughter. "Beatrice, I'm not sure—" "Daddy," she interrupted in a tone that brooked no objection. "It's important to Owen, and for me. Felix will be there too. You hardly see him." "Whose fault is that?" I wanted to ask, but I kept quiet. My grandson, like his parents, visited me only out of necessity, usually when Beatrice needed money for his education or another class. "I'll think about it," I replied. "Daddy," she sounded steely, "it's out of the question. You will come at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, bring your specialty lemon pie and mingle nicely with the guests. Is that understood?" I squeezed the tube tighter. Once upon a time, my little bee would ask me to tell her a bedtime story and hug me tightly before bed. Now she spoke to me as if I were an infirm old man to be controlled. "I understand, Beatrice," I replied, adding weariness to my voice. Let her think she was still in control. "I'll be there at 2 with cake." "Great!" I could hear the relief in her voice. "And Dad, wear something decent, okay? Not those old cardigans of yours. Owen's gonna have the boss." I could have reminded her that at 76, I had the right to wear whatever I wanted, and that my old cardigans cost more than her husband's entire closet. But instead I just said, "Of course, darling. See you Saturday." She disconnected without even saying goodbye. I put the phone down and looked at the picture of Eleanor on the mantelpiece. My Nora, with her bright eyes and warm smile, had died 7 years ago of cancer. We had lived together for 43 years. After she died, everything changed. "You should see what our daughter has become," I said quietly to the pictures. When Nora was alive, Beatrice came every weekend with Owen and little Felix. We'd have family dinners. Nora would teach her grandson how to bake cookies, and I'd show him how to make bird feeders. Back then, Owen hadn't gotten a promotion at his accounting firm yet, and they were short of money for the mortgage. I helped them monthly, but I never mentioned it. Nora thought it should be discreet. After she died, Beatrice came less and less often. First every month, then once a quarter, now only on special occasions or when she needed something. But she called every week to see if I was still alive and hadn't done anything unreasonable with our money. I chuckled. If only she knew how much I really had. Sanitation inspector isn't the most lucrative job, but I've always been frugal and started investing early. My financial advisor Albert used to say I had a nose for good stocks. Beatrice thought I was living solely on my pension and small savings, and didn't realize I was paying not only for Felix's private school, but also for their annual trips to Europe. I sighed and headed for the kitchen. Lemon pie wouldn't bake itself, and I never break promises, not even to Beatrice. I spent the next 2 days preparing for the inevitable challenge. I washed my best shirt, ironed my pants, even went to the barber, though my hair, still thick, though completely gray, didn't really need it. I tried not to think about the upcoming barbecue, but my thoughts kept returning to the last time I'd seen my daughter. It had been 3 months ago, on Felix's birthday. The boy had turned 16 and they'd thrown a huge party. I presented my grandson with a check for $1,000, not the most original gift, but the only one I knew he would accept without a scornful grin. Beatrice introduced me to guests all evening as, "My dad, he's a little old-fashioned." Owen interrupted my stories 3 times, saying, "I'm sorry, Dad, but I'm sure no one is interested in these ancient times." And Felix took one look at the check and just said, "Thank you," and walked away, not even bothering to give me a hug. I remembered how Nora had always taught Beatrice to be grateful for gifts and to show respect for her elders. Somewhere along the way, our daughter had forgotten those lessons, or decided they were no longer important. Saturday morning, I woke up with a heaviness in my chest. Not physical. The doctor said I had a heart like a 50-year-old's for my age. It was a mental heaviness, a premonition of another day of humiliation and condescending smiles. "Hang in there, old man," I said to my reflection, tying my tie. "It's only one day." I picked out the dark blue suit Nora had given me for our 40th wedding anniversary. It still fit perfectly. I'd kept my figure thanks to daily walks and gardening. I added engraved silver cufflinks, a gift from Beatrice for my 70th birthday, when she still remembered such dates. At 11 o'clock, I began to make a pie. The recipe was an old one from Nora's mother's cookbook. I methodically measured the ingredients, whipped the batter, squeezed the lemons. This activity always calmed me down. Nora often said I had the hands of a surgeon, precise and sure. While the cake baked, I sat in a chair with a cup of tea and an old photo album. Here's Beatrice at 6, with 2 front teeth knocked out, proudly holding her first bicycle. Here she is at 14, smiling shyly before the school dance. Here's her graduation, university, wedding. When did everything change? When did my loving daughter turn into this cold, calculating woman? Perhaps it started when Felix was born. Beatrice became different, more intense, more ambitious. Or when Owen got his first promotion and they moved to a more upscale neighborhood. Or when Nora died and there was no one left to soften the growing gap between us. The ringing of the timer snapped me out of my musings. The pie was ready, golden, flavorful, perfect. I carefully packed it in a special container for transportation. Beatrice and Owen's house was a 20-minute drive from mine, in a new neighborhood with identical expensive houses and perfectly mowed lawns. I never understood why I would pay that kind of money for a house that looked like dozens of others. My old Victorian mansion cost half as much but had character and history. I parked my Buick sedan, another object of ridicule by Owen, who thought it was old-fashioned, and paused for a moment looking at the house. Through the large windows, I could see people gathered inside and in the backyard. Music, laughter, the smell of roasting meat, an ordinary happy family celebrating success. And I, a stranger among them, got to play the part of the sweet old dad. I took a deep breath, picked up the pie, and got out of the car. With every step toward the house, the urge to turn around and drive away grew. But I couldn't. Not because of Beatrice, but because of the promise I'd made to myself to be better than how they treated me. The door opened before I knocked. Beatrice, flawless in a light blue summer dress with perfect hair and makeup, looked me over appraisingly. "Daddy, you're late," she said instead of greeting me. I looked at my watch. It was 1 hour 58. "I'm sorry, honey." "Movement," I lied, not wanting to start an argument. She took the pie from me and wrinkled her nose. "Lemon? I thought you were bringing strawberry. Owen's guests prefer berry desserts." "You asked for specialty," I reminded her. "My specialty is lemon." She sighed like a martyr. "Okay, whatever. Come on in, everyone's here." I followed her into the house, mentally counting to 10. It was going to be a long day. Beatrice and Owen's house was bustling with activity. There were people with glasses everywhere, laughter, and the sense of grilling and perfume in the air. I felt like I was in someone else's movie. The scenery was beautiful, but the part was not. Dad, do you remember Robert Sheldon, the vice president of Owen's company? Beatrice motioned me toward a tall man with a perfectly trimmed beard. Sure, I lied, extending my hand. It's nice to see you again, Robert. Likewise, Mr. Ravenscroft. He shook my hand with an expression of polite indifference. Beatrice has told me a lot about you. I doubted it. My daughter didn't mention my name in conversation if she could avoid it. Daddy used to be a sanitation inspector, Beatrice said in the tone one usually used to say. He used to take out the garbage. Quite a honorable profession. Robert was obviously choosing his words. It must have been interesting. Oh, don't make him tell stories, Beatrice laughed. We'll all go hungry here. Papa can talk for hours about the poor hygiene of restaurants. Robert smiled politely and used the approaching woman as an excuse to move away. Beatrice looked around. Dad, get yourself something to drink and introduce yourself to the guests. I need to check on the barbecue. She walked away, leaving me alone among the strangers. I moved slowly toward the drinks table, trying to look casual. A glass of good scotch, I thought, would make this day a little more bearable. Grandpa. I turned around. Felix was standing by the table, tall for his 16, with a mop of dark hair and a perpetually bored expression. He was wearing some ridiculously expensive jeans and a t-shirt with the name of a band I'd never heard of. Felix. Good to see you, I smiled. How was school? He shrugged, pouring himself a Coke. It's okay. Your mother told me you were into programming? I did. How'd it go? I gave it up. He took a sip. It got boring. I nodded, not knowing what else to say. Once my grandson and I could talk for hours. I taught him how to fish, how to make bird feeders, how to talk about constellations. Now it's like there's a wall between us. Grandpa, I have to go, Felix said suddenly, looking over my shoulder. My friends are there. He walked away without waiting for an answer. I turned around and saw a group of teenagers appearing in the backyard. Apparently, Beatrice had allowed her son to invite his friends over. I poured myself a scotch and stepped aside, watching the scene. Owen stood at the grill, surrounded by co-workers loudly telling some story. Beatrice fluttered between the guests, playing the role of the perfect hostess. Felix and his friends kept to themselves, constantly checking their phones. I felt like a ghost, visible but not real. Are you Beatrice's father? The woman who approached me asked. Yes, Huxley Ravenscroft, I introduced myself. Pamela Greer, wife of Tom, Owen's co-worker, she smiled. You must be proud of your daughter. Such a beautiful family, such a successful husband. Yes, very proud, I replied automatically. I always say that the most important thing is family, Pamela continued. My parents live with us. You know, at their age, you can't be alone. Do you live with Beatrice too? No, I have my own house. Oh, she looked at me with sympathy. It must be hard to be alone at that age. I'm 76, not 106, I said, irritated. And I'm doing just fine on my own. Pamela looked embarrassed. Of course, I didn't mean to offend. It's just that my parents, she stammered. Excuse me. I need to find my husband. She hurried away and I took a sip of scotch, feeling bitter from more than just the drink. Only 15 minutes here, and I already wanted to leave. Daddy, Beatrice sprang up next to me. I see you've already started drinking. Please don't drink too much. Remember what happened at Christmas? I had 3 glasses of wine and told a joke that Owen thought was inappropriate. Beatrice, I'm having the first glass. Good, good. She held up her hands. I'm just worried about you. At your age, alcohol. At my age, I interrupted, scotch is one of the few pleasures that still matters. She rolled her eyes. Okay, Dad. Just don't start lecturing me on the joys of growing old. We'll be eating soon. Don't sit in the corner. Socialize. She left and I stayed, feeling my face burning with humiliation. With each visit to this house, I realized more and more clearly my daughter was ashamed of me. I finished my scotch and decided to go out into the yard. Maybe the fresh air would help me get through the day. Beatrice's backyard was as immaculate as anything in her life. Perfectly cut grass, expensive garden furniture, a large pool with crystal clear water. Around the grill, men crowded around discussing some financial news. Women sat in groups under a large umbrella. Teenagers lounged by the pool. I found a vacant chair off to the side and sat down, watching everyone. No one was paying attention to me, and that was a good thing. Better to be invisible than to be the object of fake sympathy or poorly concealed irritation. My thoughts returned to Nora. How would she handle this situation? Probably find a way to melt the ice, make everyone feel comfortable. She always had a knack for smoothing things over. But without her, it was as if I'd lost a part of myself that could be a pleasant conversationalist. "Daddy!" Beatrice's voice broke me out of my thoughts. "Why are you sitting here alone? Come to the table. We're starting dinner." I got up and went to the large table covered with a white tablecloth. The guests were already seated, and I noticed that my seat was at the far end, next to the children. Typical Beatrice, away from the important guests. Owen took a seat at the head of the table and raised his glass. "Friends, I am delighted to welcome you to our home." He smiled, his trademark smile that never reached his eyes. "Thank you for sharing this special day with us. As you know, after 10 years with the company, I have finally been promoted to CFO." Applause and congratulations erupted. "Of course it was a team effort," Owen continued, "and I want to thank my beautiful wife Beatrice, who has always supported me." Everyone looked at Beatrice, who was smiling modestly, though I knew she was cheering inside. Status had always been more important to her than anything else. "And also my son Felix, who put up with my late returns and working weekends." Owen nodded toward his son, who hadn't taken his eyes off the phone. "And of course, our extended corporate family, especially Robert, who believed in me." Robert raised his glass in response. "And of course, my father-in-law Huxley," Owen pointed at me, and all eyes turned to me, "who's always been, an example of hard work." There was something condescending in his tone that made me cringe, but I smiled and raised my glass. "To Owen," I said. "To Owen." Everyone cheered. Dinner began, and the conversations flowed around me. I silently ate a steak that was overcooked and a salad that had too much vinegar in it. No one addressed me, and I didn't try to interfere with the conversations. What could I say to these people discussing stocks, real estate, and the latest car models? "Mr. Ravenscroft," Robert suddenly turned to me. "Beatrice tells me you were a sanitation inspector." I nodded, surprised at the sudden attention. "Yes, 35 years. "You must have seen a lot," he smiled. "What was the worst violation you found?" I began to tell a story about a restaurant where I found cockroaches in the pantry. It was one of my favorite professional stories, and I knew how to make it interesting. However, no sooner had I reached the halfway point than Owen laughed out loud at someone else's joke, interrupting me. All attention turned to him. "I'm sorry, Daddy," Beatrice smiled guiltily. "You'll tell me later." "Robert, have you heard about Anderson's new project?" I became invisible again. Slowly finishing my steak, I watched these people, successful, confident, laughing at jokes I didn't find funny. My world and their world were parallel universes that happened to cross paths at this barbecue. After dinner, everyone scattered around the yard. I helped put the dishes away, despite Beatrice's protests, and went out to the pool. The day was hot, and the cool water looked inviting. Of course, I wasn't going to swim. I hadn't brought my swim trunks, and I didn't want to expose my old body to the world. "Hey, Grandpa," Felix suddenly appeared next to me. "Mom said you used to be a champion swimmer?" "Not champion," I smiled, surprised by his interest. "But I was on the swim team in college." "Cool." He seemed genuinely interested. "And what was your best score?" I started talking about my younger years, about competing, about practicing at 5 in the morning. Felix listened, asked questions, and for a moment I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe not all was lost with my grandson. "Hey, Felix," one of his friends called out to him. "Come on, Jason's got a new game." "Now," Felix shouted, then turned to me. "Sorry, Grandpa, I have to go." "Sure," I nodded. It was nice to talk. He ran off and I stayed by the pool looking at the water and remembering my youth. Back then, everything seemed possible. I thought I would be an architect, designing great buildings, but life turned out differently. After my father died, I had to drop out of school and find a job to support my mother. The position in the sanitary service was stable, with a good pension. I didn't regret my choice. It allowed me to provide for my family, to give Beatrice the education I could only dream of. "Dad," Beatrice's voice interrupted my thoughts. "You've been sitting alone all day. Why don't you socialize with the guests?" "I was talking to Felix," I answered. "Yes, he said you were telling him about your voyage," she sighed. "Dad, no one is interested in stories from 50 years ago." Felix was interested. "He's just a polite boy." She looked at me with the expression I hated most, a mixture of pity and annoyance. "Look, maybe you should go home. You look tired." "I'm fine," I replied stubbornly. "Come on, Dad. I can tell you're not comfortable here. All these people are 30 or 40 years younger than you. What are you going to talk to them about?" "About life, Beatrice." I looked her in the eye. "Life doesn't begin with your birth and it doesn't end with my old age." She rolled her eyes. "Here we go again. Your eternal lectures on the wisdom of age." "I don't lecture." "Yes, you do." She suddenly raised her voice. "You always do. You come into my house and start lecturing everyone with your ancient wisdom. Do you think my guests are interested in hearing stories about cockroaches in 50s restaurants?" I noticed that some of the guests turned in our direction. "Beatrice, let's not—" "No, Daddy." She couldn't control the volume anymore. "I invited you because you're my father, but you sit there all day with a sour face, refusing to socialize, and then you accuse me of disrespect." "I didn't accuse anyone," I said quietly. "Not with words, with looks. You think I don't see the way you look at us? Our house, our friends? As if we weren't good enough for the great Huxley Ravenscroft. Now everyone was looking at us. I felt myself blush with shame and anger. "Beatrice, you're wrong. I never—" "You know what, Daddy?" She came closer, and I saw something new in her eyes, not just annoyance, but real anger. "You need to chill out." And before I knew what was happening, she pushed me in the chest. I lost my balance and flailed my arms, falling into the pool. The cold water covered my head. I was disoriented for a moment, then surfaced, gulping for air. My suit was instantly wet and heavy. My glasses came off, and the world was a blur. Through the noise in my ears, I heard laughter. Everyone was laughing. My own daughter had pushed me, a 76-year-old man, into the pool, and people found it funny. "Cool off, Daddy!" Beatrice shouted, and a new wave of laughter swept across the yard. I swam to the edge of the pool and struggled to get out. The water dripped off me, my suit sticking to my body. I fumbled for my goggles at the bottom of the pool and put them on my wet face. I could see everyone clearly now. Beatrice, still laughing. Owen, trying to hide a smile. Robert and the other guests giggling into their fists. Felix, filming everything on his phone. No one asked if I was okay. No one reached out to help me. Just laughter and smiles behind me. I walked silently through the house, leaving wet footprints behind me. Grabbed my things and walked outside. Got into my car, not caring that my wet clothes would ruin the seats. It was only when I got on the road that I allowed myself to do something I hadn't done in years, cry from humiliation and pain. But the tears dried quickly, replaced by something new, a cold, hard resolve. That was the last time Beatrice would humiliate me. The last time. I returned home soaked to the skin, heartbroken and humiliated. My car was soaked with the smell of chlorine from the pool, my shirt stuck to my body, my hair slick with water. My favorite suit, Nora's last gift to me, was probably hopelessly ruined. In the hallway, I pulled off my wet clothes, tossing them into the laundry basket and made my way to the bathroom. Standing under the hot shower, I let the water wash away not only the traces of chlorine, but also, it seemed, the bitterness that had accumulated over the years. Each drop that ran down my old body took a piece of pain away with it, leaving something new in return: cold determination. After wiping myself dry and putting on my robe, I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at Nora's picture. "What would you say now, dear?" I asked quietly. "That our daughter is just upset? That she didn't mean to hurt me? That I should forgive and forget?" The picture was silent, but I knew exactly what Nora would have said. She was always defending Beatrice, finding excuses for her actions. "She's just impulsive, like you were when you were young. She works hard, she's tired. She's not mean." And I, as usual, would give in. For Nora's sake, I was willing to forgive Beatrice indefinitely. But Nora was gone, and my patience was wearing thin. I went to the window. Outside the window, the summer day was winding down, and the last birds were singing in the garden. My small, well-kept world built by years of labor and care. My home, where every corner held memories of a happy life with Nora. The house that Beatrice thought of as her future inheritance, without even bothering to ask what I wanted for myself. In that moment, I made a decision. Not an emotional one, not driven by resentment, but a cold, rational one. I'm going to change my life, right now. The first thing I did was pull out my cell phone and dial the number. "Albert, it's Huxley," I said, hearing the voice of my financial advisor. "I apologize for calling on my day off." "Huxley, that's all right," he said. "Did something happen?" "Yes." I took a deep breath. "I want to change my financial orders. Completely." There was a pause. "This is a serious conversation, Huxley. Wouldn't it be better on Monday at the office?" "No, Albert. I want to start the process now." My voice sounded confident. "First of all, I want to close the account my daughter has access to. The one that pays your grandson's tuition." "That's right. Close it and transfer the balance to my personal account." "Okay." Albert sounded puzzled but professional. "Anything else?" "Yes. Cancel all regular payments to Beatrice and Owen's accounts, every single one." "Huxley, there's a monthly payment on their mortgage." "I know," I said. "Cancel it." "And Felix's private school tuition?" "Yes." I felt a pang of regret, but dismissed it. "All payments." "It will be, unexpected for them," Albert said cautiously. "I'm sure it will." "Huxley, pardon me for asking, but is everything all right with you? Did you have a fight with your daughter?" I grinned. If only he knew. "Albert, you're my financial advisor, not my marriage counselor. Please follow my orders." "Of course, Huxley." He became businesslike at once. "I'll do it. But I'd recommend you come into the office on Monday so we can review your entire financial strategy. If you're changing the orders on the family accounts, you might want to reconsider other aspects as well." "You're right," I agreed. "Book me a time for Monday, 10 o'clock in the morning." "Will do. And Huxley, whatever happens, remember that hasty financial decisions are rarely successful. Believe me, Albert, there's nothing rash about this decision. 7 years I've been waiting for something to change. That's enough." I ended the call and immediately dialed the next number. "Bradley and Associates," a woman's voice answered. "Good evening. This is Huxley Ravenscroft. I need to speak to Miles Bradley. It's urgent." "Mr. Bradley doesn't work weekends," the secretary replied politely. "May I suggest you make an appointment for Monday? Please, it's really urgent. You must have his personal number." "Mr. Ravenscroft, I can't—" "I've been his client for 30 years, I interrupted, "and it's about my will." There was a pause. "One moment, please." A few minutes later, a familiar voice sounded in the receiver. "Huxley? It's Miles. What's wrong?" "Miles, I need to completely rewrite the will," I said without preamble. "How quickly can we do it?" "Rewrite?" He sounded stunned. "Completely?" "Yes. I want to exclude my daughter and her family as heirs." "Huxley," his tone became cautious. "This is a very serious decision. What happened?" "It's personal, Miles. I just want to know how fast we can do it." "Technically, Monday at least," he answered after a pause. "But, Huxley, I'd be a bad friend and a bad lawyer if I didn't advise you to think twice. Family quarrels." "It's not a quarrel, Miles." I could feel the irritation building. "It's my deliberate decision, and please don't try to talk me out of it." "Okay," he sighed. "Come back Monday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll prepare a draft, but until then you can change your mind, and I won't ask questions." "I won't change my mind," I said firmly. "I'll see you Monday." Next was a call to the realtor. Emily Page, an energetic middle-aged woman, had been selling real estate in our neighborhood for 15 years. She had helped Beatrice and Owen with the purchase of their home. "Mr. Ravenscroft," she exclaimed happily. "What a pleasant surprise. What can I do for you?" "Emily, I want to sell my house," I said bluntly. "You do?" She didn't hide her surprise. "But you always said you'd never move." "Plans change," I cut her off. "How fast can we put the house on the market?" "Well, we have to do an appraisal, take pictures, prepare the documents," she pondered. "But your house is in excellent condition, and the neighborhood is in demand. I think a week to get it ready and we can put it on the market. But where do you plan to move to?" I hadn't thought about it until now, but the answer came to me. Oceanside, a small coastal town about 4 hours from Falls Church. Nora and I honeymooned there and often dreamed of returning in retirement. It didn't work out. Nora got sick too soon. But now I could realize our dream. "It's a beautiful place," Emily approved. "Would you like me to contact my colleagues there to find options?" "Yes, please. I need something small but comfortable, preferably with an ocean view." "Of course." She paused. "Mr. Ravenscroft, does your daughter know about your decision?" I grinned. "No, and I'd rather you didn't tell her if she calls you." "I understand," Emily said cautiously. "Client confidentiality comes first for me. I'll have all the paperwork ready by Monday and I'll come to you for an appraisal if that's convenient for you." "Perfect. I look forward to seeing you at 3 o'clock this afternoon." As I ended the call, I felt strangely relieved. Only 3 calls in my life had already started to change. I put the phone away and walked over to the cabinet where the important documents were kept. Pulling out a folder of contracts, I started going through them one by one. Home insurance. Need to change the beneficiary. Life insurance. Same thing. Bank accounts, investments, stocks. A lot of assets had accumulated over 40 years, and Beatrice's name appeared everywhere as heir or trustee. I methodically compiled a list of changes that needed to be made. The process took almost an hour, but I didn't feel tired. On the contrary, every line, every decision filled me with energy. It was as if I was shedding a heavy weight I'd been carrying for years. My phone beeped, announcing a new message. "Beatrice. Dad, are you okay? You left so quickly. It was just a joke. No offense." A joke. She thought humiliating an old man in front of a dozen strangers was a joke. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I continued with the paperwork, feeling a cold resolve growing inside. Only after finishing the list and putting the folders away did I pick up my phone and dial a short reply. "I'm fine. Got soaked, but made it home with no problems. Sorry, but I'm not feeling well. I'll stop by tomorrow to pick up the cane I left at your place." The cane was a fiction. I'd never owned a cane. But it gave me an excuse to stop by and see their house one last time before I cut Beatrice out of my life forever. The phone beeped again. "What cane? You didn't bring a cane. Are you sick? Do you want me to come over?" typical of Beatrice's first doubt of my words, then on-duty concern. A black cane with a silver head. It was standing by the entrance. "Don't come. I'm just tired. See you tomorrow." A small lie, but it would serve my purpose. I didn't want to see Beatrice today. I needed time to finalize my decision, for the anger to burn out and turn into cold certainty. "All right, if you're sure. Get well. Felix says the video of you in the pool has already garnered 20 likes on his Instagram." I stared at the screen, not believing my eyes. My grandson had posted a video of my humiliation on the internet, and Beatrice had seen fit to let me know about it, as if it were something to be proud of. At that moment, the last of my doubts evaporated. I didn't respond to the message, just put my phone away and stood up. I needed a walk to clear my head. The evening air was warm and smelled like the jasmine I'd planted along the fence years ago. I walked slowly through the familiar streets, nodding to my neighbors, contemplating my future. Strangely, I felt no anger or resentment, only a quiet determination. When I got home, I sat down at my computer and opened the Oceanside real estate website. As I browsed through the options for condos and small houses, I envisioned my new life. Morning walks on the beach, fishing, maybe even getting back into swimming. I could do whatever I wanted without looking back at my daughter's expectations or feeling like a burden. I ticked off a few of my favorite options to send to Emily and closed the computer. It was already getting dark and the house had fallen into silence. I made my way to the bedroom where I'd slept next to Nora for so many years and lay down, looking up at the ceiling. "I'm going to do it, Nora," I whispered into the darkness. "I'm going to start a new life, without them." And for the first time in a long time, I fell asleep without the pills, feeling strangely peaceful. Sunday morning greeted me with bright sunshine and birds chirping outside my window. I woke up early as usual, but I felt different, as if I had become 10 years younger overnight. After showering and eating breakfast, I decided to do some gardening before visiting Beatrice. Working with plants always calmed me down. I methodically trimmed the hedges, weeded the beds, and watered the roses that Nora loved so much. Each movement was familiar, almost meditative. For a moment I caught myself thinking that I would miss this garden. But then I envisioned a new garden, maybe smaller but overlooking the ocean. Nora would approve. At noon I took another shower, changed into a fresh shirt and pants, and left the house. On the way to Beatrice's, I stopped at an antique store and bought a cane, a black one with a silver knob, just like the one I'd described in the message. The salesman looked at me with mild surprise when, after paying, I left the cane in the store. "I'll pick it up later," I said, without explaining why. Driving up to my daughter's house, I felt strangely calm. Yesterday's anger and resentment had receded, replaced by a cold determination. I wasn't going to make a scene or get into a fight. I just wanted to see one last time the place where my daughter had built her life, a life in which I no longer had a place. Beatrice and Owen's cars were parked in the driveway, so everyone's home. Perfect. I rang the doorbell and waited, straightening up and squaring my shoulders. Owen opened the door and there was a second of confusion on his face. "Huxley, I wasn't expecting you today." "I texted Beatrice to say I'd pick up my cane," I said calmly. "Oh yes, the cane." He nodded, obviously not knowing what it was about. "Come in, Beatrice is in the kitchen." I entered the house, looking around as if for the first time. An immaculately clean hallway, expensive paintings on the walls, designer furniture. The house I sent money to every month without ever mentioning it. "Daddy." Beatrice came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "Are you feeling better?" "Much better, thank you," I smiled. "I just stopped by to pick up my cane." "What cane?" She frowned. "You didn't have a cane yesterday." "I left it out front when I came in," I answered calmly. "It was black with a silver shaft." "Papa, you're confused." Beatrice looked at me with that expression I hated so much, a mixture of annoyance and worry. We don't have any cane. That's odd, I faked confusion. Maybe one of the guests took it by mistake. It was a gift from your mother. Beatrice and Owen looked at each other. The old man's out of his mind, they said. Papa, Mama never gave you a cane, Beatrice said softly. Did you dream it? Maybe, I shrugged. At my age, sometimes you confuse reality and fantasy. Why don't you have some tea? She suggested, clearly concerned about my condition. With pleasure, I nodded. We went into the kitchen where Felix sat staring at his phone. Hi, Grandpa. He didn't even look up. Hello, Felix. How was your video? Did it get a lot of likes? He finally took his eyes off the screen and looked at me with slight confusion. What do you mean? The video of me falling into the pool. Your mother said you put it on the internet. Beatrice, who was pouring tea, froze. Dad, I didn't say... Felix says the video of you in the pool has already garnered 20 likes on his Instagram, I quoted her message. Didn't it? Felix blushed and ducked back into his phone. Beatrice set the cup down in front of me and sat across from me. Dad, it was just a joke. Felix had already deleted the video. Did he? I turned to my grandson. Deleted it? He nodded reluctantly, not looking me in the eye. Yes, Grandpa. I'm sorry. I took a sip of tea. No need to apologize. I realized how funny the old man falling into the water looked. A real comedy. Dad, Beatrice sighed. I've already apologized. It was a stupid joke. I didn't mean to offend you. Of course, I nodded. By the way, I was thinking about what we discussed last month, about helping with the mortgage. Beatrice's face brightened. Last time she complained about the high payments, I hinted I might be able to help. Yes, I've been meaning to talk about that, she perked up. The bank raised the interest rate and now we're paying $300 more each month. With Felix's school expenses, it's getting a little hard. I thought, I interrupted, that you could manage on your own. After all, Owen got a promotion, and Felix could go to a regular school. Public education isn't so bad, I got it myself. There was silence. Beatrice looked at me, not believing her ears. But Daddy, we were talking. I changed my mind. I finished my tea and put the cup down. Thank you for the tea. It was wonderful. I'd better be going. Since the cane isn't here, I'll have to buy a new one. I stood up, feeling the stunned looks on my face. Beatrice followed. Daddy, wait. Are you sure you're feeling all right? You seem a little different today. I feel fine, I smiled. Better than I have in the last 7 years. 7 years? She frowned. Since Mom... Exactly, I nodded. Thank you for your hospitality. Say hello to the guests the next time you push someone into the pool. And with those words, I headed for the exit, feeling the confusion growing behind me. At the door, I turned around and looked at my daughter one last time. Take care of yourself, Beatrice. Monday was a busy day. In the morning, I met with Albert, my financial advisor. He prepared all the paperwork and we methodically reorganized my financial life. Albert tried several times to gently probe the reasons for my decisions, but I answered evasively. Eventually, he gave up and just carried out my instructions professionally and clearly. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was in Miles Bradley's office. My old friend and attorney looked concerned but didn't lecture. We drew up a new will in which Beatrice and her family did not appear at all. I decided to give the bulk of the inheritance to several charitable organizations, including the Cancer Research Foundation, the disease that took my Nora. Are you sure, Huxley? Miles asked as I signed my name. Is this the final decision? Yes, I answered firmly. I'm absolutely sure. At 3 o'clock, Emily, the realtor, arrived. She inspected the house, assessed its condition, and made a list of cosmetic changes that would help it sell for more money. Your house is in perfect condition, Mr. Ravenscroft, she said with genuine admiration. There aren't many houses like that these days. I think we can get it above market value and still find a buyer quickly. We discussed the details, and I signed the contract for the sale. Emily promised to look for a suitable property in Oceanside. I gave her a list of requirements: a small house or apartment with an ocean view, a quiet neighborhood, preferably with a garden or at least a terrace. In the evening, I turned off the landline and put my cell phone on silent. I didn't want anything to distract me from my plans. Of course, Beatrice called. I could see the missed calls, but I didn't call back. On Tuesday, I got busy sorting through my things. There was a lot of stuff that had accumulated over the 45 years I'd lived in this house. I decided to take only the essentials and valuables with me. Photos of Nora, her jewelry that I keep for keepsakes, a few favorite books, clothes, and necessities. The rest could be sold with the house or given to charity. Beatrice kept calling. Tuesday night, she left her first voicemail message. "Daddy, why aren't you answering? I'm worried. If you don't call me back by tomorrow, I'm coming over to see if everything is okay." I didn't call back. Wednesday morning, I got a text from Emily. She had found a few options in Oceanside and offered to go see them on Thursday. I agreed. In the afternoon, the doorbell rang. I knew it was Beatrice, so I decided not to open it. The calls got more and more insistent. Then I heard her banging on the windows and calling for me. I sat in the study looking through old photo albums and didn't respond. "Daddy, I know you're home. Open up now." Her voice sounded scared and annoyed at the same time. After a while, I heard her talking on the phone. Apparently, she was calling Owen. After another 10 minutes, the noise died down. When I looked out the window, I saw that her car was gone. In the evening, another doorbell rang. This time it was the police, 2 young officers who had been summoned by the worried daughter. "Mr. Ravenscroft?" one of them asked. "Your daughter has reported that she can't get in touch with you. She is worried about your health." "As you can see, I'm alive and well," I replied as I opened the door. "I just decided to take a little break from socializing." The officers examined me carefully, satisfied that I was of sound mind, and left, promising to inform Beatrice that I was all right. 10 minutes after they left, the phone rang. This time, I decided to answer it. "Daddy." Beatrice's voice sounded indignant. "What's going on? Why didn't you answer the phone? I almost went crazy with worry." "I was resting," I replied calmly. "I have the right. Resting? For 3 days?" She was almost screaming. "I came and knocked on all the windows. Why didn't you open up?" I didn't want to see anyone. "Dad, what's going on? Are you sick? Are you mad at me? If it's because of the pool incident, I've already apologized. It was a stupid joke." "I'm not offended, Beatrice," I said in an even tone. "I just made a decision." "What decision?" "To start a new life." There was a pause. "What do you mean?" Her voice became strained. "Exactly what I said. I've decided to change my life." "Dad, you're scaring me. I'll come over and we'll talk." "You don't have to. I won't be home tomorrow. I have a thing in Oceanside." "Oceanside? What are you doing there?" "Looking for a new place to live." Another pause, longer this time. "You're, moving?" Her voice trembled. "Yes, but why?" "Your house, our family home." "Exactly, my house, and I've decided to sell it." "Sell it?" Now she was screaming. "Dad, you can't. This house is part of our family history. We always thought it would stay in the family, that Felix—" "Felix?" I grinned. "The same Felix who posted the video of my humiliation on the internet? That Felix?" "Dad, he's a teenager. He did something stupid. He's already apologized." "Yeah, after you made him," I sighed. "Beatrice, I'm tired. Let's continue this conversation later." "No," she almost shouted. "We'll talk now. You can't just sell the house I grew up in." "I can. And I am. But, but we always thought we'd inherit it. It's part of our future. This is it. She's finally telling the truth." "So you've already planned my inheritance?" I asked calmly. I wondered. "No, Dad, that's not what I meant." She changed her tone quickly. "We just thought that when you, When you needed help, you'd move in with us and the house would stay in the family. I don't need your help. I'm doing just fine on my own. Right now, yes, but in 5 years, 10 years. In 10 years, I'll be 86, and I hope to still be strong enough to live on my own. And if I'm not, there are wonderful nursing homes. Dad, she sounded shocked. You would choose a nursing home over your own family? Yes, I answered simply. I would. There was a long pause. Something's wrong, she said at last. You can't just change all your plans. I've been thinking a long time, Beatrice. 7 years to be exact. Since your mother died. And what have you decided? That it's time to stop being an ATM machine for a family who see me only as a source of money and an object of ridicule. Thursday, I drove to Oceanside, leaving my cell phone at home. With Emily, we looked at 3 options, and I chose a small house overlooking the ocean. The deal was supposed to close in 2 weeks. When I returned that evening, I found dozens of missed calls and messages from Beatrice, Owen, and even Felix. Their tone changed from concern to annoyed and back again. Friday morning, Beatrice arrived unannounced. She looked pale and nervous. "Daddy, what's going on?" she asked when she saw the boxes in the hallway. "Are you really moving?" "Yes, Beatrice. I bought a house in Oceanside." "But why? What happened to you?" "Nothing happened. I just decided to start a new life." "What about us?" There was desperation in her voice. "I talked to the bank. They said you canceled all the transfers. Is that true?" "Yes," I confirmed. "I've decided to spend my money on myself." "But Daddy!" She was almost screaming. "We were counting on that money. We had commitments, plans, that you built knowing I would be paying for them." I shook my head. "This is your problem, Beatrice." "You don't understand," she started to cry. "Without your help, we won't be able to pay for Felix's school. We'll have to tighten our belts, maybe even sell the house." "Welcome to the real world," I replied calmly. "Most people live within their means." "You're doing this out of spite," she accused me, "because of some stupid pool joke." "No, Beatrice. The pool was just the last straw. I'm doing this because I'm tired of being the invisible family member who's only remembered when money is needed." "That's not true," she sobbed. "We love you." "Maybe," I sighed. "But you don't respect. And without respect, love is worthless." After Beatrice left, Owen called. He was furious. "What have you done to Beatrice?" he shouted. "She came home hysterical." "We just talked," I replied calmly. "About you withdrawing your financial support without warning? About selling the house you promised to leave us?" "I never promised to leave you the house, Owen. That's your fantasy." "Huxley," his tone suddenly changed, almost pleading. "Without your help, we can't pay for Felix's school. We're going to have to make severe cuts." "Welcome to the real world, Owen," I replied. "Most people live within their means." "Beatrice is right," he said bitterly. "You are a cruel man." "Perhaps," I agreed. "But it's better to be cruel than to let people wipe their feet on me." On Saturday, the prospective buyers came in, a young couple with a small child. They fell in love with the house at first sight. "This is the perfect place for our family," the man said, shaking my hand. "Thank you for keeping it in such beautiful condition." I smiled as I watched the woman show the baby the garden. Once upon a time, Nora and I had been like that, young, hopeful, with little Beatrice in our arms. The circle had closed. On Sunday, Beatrice arrived again, this time with Felix. My grandson looked unaccustomedly serious. "Grandpa," he began, clearly having memorized his speech, "I want to apologize for the video. It was stupid and cruel of me." "Thank you, Felix," I nodded. "I appreciate your apology." "And I wanted to tell you that I don't want you to leave," he added uncertainly. I'm going to miss you." I looked at Beatrice. She was standing with her arms crossed over her chest and her face read, "See? He apologized. Now you have to forgive everything and go back to the way things were." "I'll miss you too, Felix," I said. But my decision won't change. Papa, said Beatrice indignantly. Felix apologizes sincerely. Can't you— It's not about apologizing, Beatrice, I interrupted. The point is that our relationship has gone too far. You see me as a person, a burden, and I'm tired of that role. That is not true, she objected. We're a family. A family respects each other, Beatrice. A family cares about each other's feelings. You haven't done that in years. They left with nothing, and I went back to packing, feeling strangely relieved. For the first time in a long time, I was absolutely sure of my decision. Oceanside greeted me with bright sunshine and a fresh sea breeze. I stood on the terrace of my new house, breathing in the salty air and listening to the cries of the seagulls. It had been exactly a month since that unfortunate barbecue, and 2 weeks since I'd moved in. Everything happened faster than I expected. The buyers for my old house came immediately, and the deal closed in record time. Beatrice tried to stop the sale, even consulted a lawyer, but there was nothing she could do. The house was solely my property. My new house was smaller than the old one, but perfect for a lonely old man. 2 bedrooms, a spacious living room with panoramic windows overlooking the ocean, a small but functional kitchen, and most importantly, a terrace where I could sit for hours watching the waves. I spent the first few days settling into my new place. I arranged the furniture I had brought, hung pictures of Nora, planted some of her favorite flowers in the small garden. Gradually, the house began to take on a soul, to become mine. I quickly settled into the town. Oceanside turned out to be exactly what Nora and I had dreamed of. Quiet, friendly, with a leisurely pace of life. The perfect place for a retiree. I'd start the morning with a walk on the beach. I would get up at 5, as I had gotten used to over the years, put on shorts and a t-shirt and walk out to the ocean. The sand was still cool from the night, and the water sparkled in the first rays of sunlight. I would walk along the edge of the surf, collecting shells or just enjoying the solitude. After breakfast, I would garden or read on the terrace. In the afternoon, I sometimes went to the local library or the cafe on the seafront, where I gradually began to meet other locals, mostly retired people who had moved here for the peace and sea air. Beatrice kept calling, but less and less frequently. I answered briefly, politely, without going into details about my new life. When asked about money, I firmly refused. Requests to come back, too. Over time, her calls became even more infrequent and then almost stopped. I felt strangely relieved. It was as if I'd dropped the heavy backpack I'd been carrying for years. For the first time in a long time, I could just live without thinking that I owed anyone, that anyone was waiting for money or approval. One evening, sitting on the terrace with a book, I caught myself thinking that I was happy. Really happy for the first time since Nora's death. Of course I missed her. Every day, every minute. But now that longing was light, without bitterness. I felt that she would have approved of my choice. She had always wanted me to be happy. The weeks went by. I blended into the local community, made a few friendships. Thursdays, I played chess with Harold, a retired philosophy professor who lived next door. On Tuesdays, I went to book club meetings at the library. On weekends, I sometimes joined a group of fishing enthusiasts. On one such day, I met Lydia Parker, a widow my age who had moved to Oceanside after her husband died. She was in a group of gardening enthusiasts, and we got to talking about roses. She admired the ones I had planted in my small garden. My wife loved roses, I explained, especially tea roses. She said they had the most delicate fragrance. Your wife was right, Lydia smiled. I too prefer tea roses. My husband planted a new variety in our garden every year. We talked all evening. Lydia turned out to be an interesting conversationalist, intelligent with a good sense of humor, and, importantly, she did not try to pity or patronize me, as many other acquaintances my age. Gradually, our meetings became regular. We went to cafes, walked along the waterfront, and sometimes just sat on my terrace, looking at the ocean and talking about everything in the world. Nothing romantic, just the friendship of two lonely people who understood each other. One morning, as I was returning from the beach, I noticed an unfamiliar car in front of my house. A black sedan with tinted windows looked out of place in our quiet neighborhood. I was wary, but continued on my way. As I got closer, I saw a man standing at my gate, middle-aged, in an austere suit with a clipboard in his hands. "Mr. Ravenscroft?" he asked as I approached. "Yes." I stopped, staring at the stranger. "What can I do for you?" "My name is Mitchell Connor. I'm a private investigator." He handed me a business card. "Your daughter hired me to find you." I took the business card and scrutinized it. It looked real. "As you can see, I'm not hiding," I said. "I live openly, under my own name." "Yeah, but you didn't leave an address." The detective smiled. "I had to work hard to find you." "And now what?" I asked. "Let her know where I live?" "I already did," he nodded. "She wanted me to make sure you were all right and tell me she wanted to meet you." "I'm more than okay." I pointed to the house. "As you can see, I'm settling in just fine." "I'm glad to hear that." The detective clearly appreciated the ocean view. "What can I tell Mrs. Tremaine?" I thought for a moment. "Tell her I'm alive and well and happy, and that I don't want any meetings." "She was very insistent," the detective said softly. "She said there was some misunderstanding that needed to be cleared up." "There is no misunderstanding," I replied firmly. "I've just decided to make a change in my life." "I understand," he nodded. "But perhaps I should at least listen to her. Family ties." "Mr. Connor," I interrupted him, "you did your job. You found me and made sure I was okay. The rest is none of your business." He held up his hands in a conciliatory gesture. "You're right. I'm sorry. I'll tell Mrs. Tremaine what you said." He left, and I stood at the gate, staring after him. So Beatrice had hired a private detective. No wonder. She was always persistent when she wanted something. And now she wanted my money. I had no doubt she'd show up soon. Beatrice was never one to take no for an answer. She arrived 2 days later. I was just finishing breakfast on the terrace when I heard the doorbell ring. When I opened it, I saw her, pale, with circles under her eyes, but still determined. "Daddy," she stepped forward, as if she were going to hug me, but I stepped back, letting her into the house. "Beatrice," I nodded. "Come in." She came in, looking around with undisguised curiosity. "It's a beautiful house," she said, walking into the living room. "The view is amazing." "Yes," I agreed. "It's exactly what your mom and I always dreamed of." "Why didn't you ever tell me you wanted to move to the sea?" she asked, coming to the window. "We could have found you something closer to us." "Because you never asked me what I wanted," I said calmly. "Sit down, Beatrice. Tea? Coffee?" "Coffee, if I may." She sat down on the sofa, still looking around. "Are you here alone? Does anyone help you with the cleaning, the cooking?" "I'm perfectly capable of cleaning my own house and cooking my own food." I headed for the kitchen. "I'm 76, not 106, remember?" I made coffee and returned to the living room with 2 cups. Beatrice was sitting there, rubbing the strap of her expensive purse. "So," I sat down across from her, "why did you come here?" She took a sip of coffee, clearly gathering her thoughts. "Dad, we have to talk. What happened? It's crazy. You can't just disappear from our lives." "Yes, I can," I said calmly. "And I did. But why?" She leaned forward. "If it's because of that pool incident, I've apologized 100 times. It was a silly joke." "It's not about the pool, Beatrice." I shook my head. "The pool was just the last straw. It's about the way you've treated me for the last 7 years." "How?" She looked genuinely puzzled. "We've always taken care of you." "Really?" I grinned. "When was the last time you asked me how I was feeling? Not for show, but genuinely interested? When was the last time you came over just for fun, not because you needed money or help with Felix?" She opened her mouth to object, but fell silent. Clearly, she couldn't remember any such occasion. "You see," I said softly, "to you, I've become an ATM and a burden, not a member of the family. It's not fair." She raised her voice. "We always invited you to holidays, family events." "Yes, we did." "And then used you as an object of ridicule or ignored. Remember Felix's birthday party? How Owen interrupted every story I told, saying no one was interested in those ancient times. How you introduced me to guests as, 'My dad, he's a bit old-fashioned.'" She fell silent again, lowering her eyes. "We didn't mean to offend you," she finally said. "Maybe," I agreed. "But we did. Regularly and mercilessly." We sat in silence. Outside the window, the surf rumbled and the seagulls shrieked. Beatrice looked at her hands and I looked at the ocean. "Daddy," she said at last, her voice trembling, "we're in trouble. Without your help, we can't pay for Felix's school. The bank raised the interest rate on the mortgage. Owen's having problems at work, he might get laid off." This is it, I thought. The real reason for her visit. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said sincerely. "But that's your problem, Beatrice, not mine." "But you are our father," she was outraged. "Felix's grandfather. You can't just abandon us in our time of need." "I can," I said calmly. "Just as you abandoned me every time I needed not financial, but emotional support. That's different." She raised her voice. "No, Beatrice, it's the same thing. Support is either there or it's not. You didn't support me when I was in trouble. Why should I support you?" "Because you're our father," she was practically screaming. "And you're my daughter," I countered. "It works both ways." She took a deep breath, clearly trying to calm down. "Okay," she finally said. "I'll admit that we haven't always treated you with the respect we deserve. We'll make it up to you. I promise. But right now, we really need your help." "Beatrice," I looked her straight in the eye. "How old are you? 43? You have a grown son, a house of your own, a husband with a good job. You're not helpless children. You're adults who should be responsible for your financial decisions." "But we were counting on your help," she objected. "You helped us for years and then suddenly you stopped." "Yes, I did, because I realized you were taking my help for granted. No gratitude, no respect." "We are grateful," she insisted. "We just didn't always show it." "Beatrice," I sighed. "You know what hurt me the most about that pool incident? Not that you pushed me. It wasn't that everyone was laughing. It was that no one, not you, not Owen, not Felix, even asked if I was okay. A 76-year-old man fell into a pool with his clothes on, and no one asked if he was hurt, if he had a cold." She opened her mouth to object, but fell silent again. "And you know what else?" I continued. "When I left, wet and humiliated, no one tried to stop me. No one apologized. Instead, Felix made a video for his Instagram. 'Dad, she stammered. "We didn't think—" "Exactly," I nodded. "You didn't. Never about me." We were silent again. Beatrice finished her coffee and set the cup on the table. "What can I do to make things right?" she finally asked. "Nothing," I answered simply. "Some things can't be fixed, Beatrice. Too much water has passed. Too many resentments have built up." You're cutting us out of your life?" Her voice trembled. "Forever?" "I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or a year from now," I answered honestly. "Right now, I just want to live for myself. No obligations, no expectations, no pressure." "What about Felix?" She tried to come at me from the other side. "He misses you. He wants to know when you'll be back." "I doubt it," I smiled. "Felix hardly noticed my absence, except for the fact that now you'll have to pay for his school yourself." "That's not fair." She was indignant. "He's your grandson." "Who couldn't get off the phone to talk to me when I came to see you?" I reminded her. "Who posted the video of my humiliation on the internet? who only called me once in all this time, when you probably made him." Beatrice stood up, clearly annoyed. "You know what, Dad? You're right. We haven't been a perfect family. We've made mistakes, been inconsiderate, maybe even rude. But you know what? You're not perfect either. You've always been stubborn, always thought you knew best. And now you're doing the same thing, making a decision for all of us without giving us a chance to fix it." "I'm making a decision for me, Beatrice," I said calmly. "Only for myself. You are free to live your life as you see fit." "Without your money," she said bitterly. "Yes, without my money. It's time you learn to live within your means." She shook her head. "I don't recognize you, Papa. You were always kind, caring. And now I'm taking care of myself," I finished for her. "For the first time in years." "I'll talk to a lawyer," she said suddenly. "You can't just disinherit us. It's not fair." "Talk to whoever you want," I shrugged. "I'm of sound mind and good judgment. I have every right to dispose of my property." She looked at me with a long stare that was a mixture of anger, resentment, and something else. Maybe the realization that she had indeed lost not only access to my money, but to me as well. "Was that your last word?" she finally asked. "Yes," I answered firmly. She nodded, picked up her purse, and headed for the exit. She stopped at the door. "You know, Dad," she said without turning around, "Mom would be disappointed." "Maybe," I agreed. "But I think she'd understand. She always understood me." Beatrice left and I went back to the terrace. I sat in a chair looking out at the ocean and felt a strange calmness. No anger, no bitterness, just a certainty that I was doing the right thing. That same evening I got a call from Owen. He was furious. "You've made Beatrice cry," he shouted into the phone. "She'd come back a wreck." "I just told her the truth, Owen," I replied calmly. "I'm sorry she was upset." "Sorry?" He was almost choking with indignation. "You're destroying our family over some little thing, and you're just sorry." "I'm not ruining your family, Owen," I countered. "It's your own financial irresponsibility, and it's not the change. It's the years of neglect and disrespect." "You're a selfish old man," he blurted out. "Beatrice is right. Her mother would be disappointed." Perhaps I did not give in to provocation. "But it's my decision, and it's final. We'll sue," he threatened. "You can't just disinherit us." "You can try," I grinned. "But be warned, the legal fees are high and my will was drafted by the best lawyer in town. You don't stand a chance, Owen." He launched into a torrent of profanity, and I just hung up. I didn't block their numbers. Let them call if they want. I just wouldn't be manipulated. The next few days passed quietly. I returned to my new routine. Morning walks on the beach, reading on the terrace, chess with Harold, meetings with Lydia. Life went on, and I enjoyed every day. One morning, about a week after Beatrice's visit, I found a letter in my mailbox. The return address was unfamiliar, but I recognized the handwriting on the envelope immediately. Felix. My grandson wrote to me sometimes when he was younger, usually birthday or Christmas cards. I opened the envelope and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Dear Grandpa, I know Mom came to visit you and you had a fight. Things are very tense at home right now. My parents are always fighting about money. Mom says you abandoned us and Dad says it's her fault. I wanted to say I'm really sorry about that video. I shouldn't have filmed it, much less posted it. It was mean and stupid. I didn't realize it would hurt you so much, and I also wanted to tell you that I miss you. I really do. I know I haven't shown it before, and you probably won't believe me. But I do miss our conversations about the stars and the birds, your stories about the past. I'm not asking you to come back or to forgive your mom. I just wanted you to know that not everyone in our family thinks of you only as a wallet. Your grandson, Felix." I reread the letter several times, feeling a warmth spill into my chest. Maybe all was not lost. Maybe Felix had really grown up and realized something important. I decided to answer him. Not now, in a few days, when my thoughts had settled. But I would definitely answer him. In the evening, I sat on the terrace with Lydia. We drank wine and watched the sun sink into the ocean, coloring the water golden and purple. "You look thoughtful today," she said. "Is something wrong?" I told her about Felix's letter, about Beatrice's visit, about the whole story. "Do you think he is sincere?" Lydia asked me when I had finished. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Perhaps he is. He's always been a clever boy. He's just lost his way, like a lot of teenagers." "Are you going to answer him?" "Yes," I nodded. "But I won't promise that I'll go back or that I'll start giving the money again. I'll just, leave the door ajar. For him." She smiled and squeezed my hand. "That's the right thing to do, Huxley. Family's a complicated thing. Sometimes you have to step back for things to change." I nodded, looking out at the sunset. Life went on. My new life, quiet, free of toxic relationships, full of small joys and big opportunities. I didn't know what the future would bring. Perhaps in time, my relationship with Beatrice would mend, if she truly changed, if she learned to respect me not for my money but for who I was. Maybe Felix will grow up to be a more empathetic person than his parents, or maybe our paths would part forever. But one thing I knew for sure, I would no longer allow anyone to treat me like an ATM machine or a burden. I deserved respect, and I finally got it, from myself.